Joining us this morning is Rich Greenfield, partner at LightShed Partners. Good morning to you, Rich.
Thanks for having us,
and
Andrew.
maybe you can help us with that last question, which is right now we haven't seen a drop off, obviously, on the streamers. But, you know, we will get to a point where discretionary income is going to be harder to come by. And the question is, who is at risk?
Look, I think it's sort of when you think about recession or economic difficulties, you know, I just think just earlier you were talking about layoffs, especially the small business layoffs that you were discussing, that Becky was talking to. You know, people are going to be out of jobs. Small businesses are going to be hurting. There is no doubt that people are going to be looking to cut back. You know, I think, though, you got to think about the realities that in-home entertainment has been exceptionally resilient. You know, if you go back to prior recessions or prior shocks, think post 9/11, think 2008, 2009 time period, the entertainment, in-home entertainment's been incredibly resilient. Right. You know, people are at home more. I mean, you showed the statistics. People are watching more TV. Now, let's be clear. The shift in more watching of TV is primarily in the older demographics. You know, if you look at the 18 to 49s, they're still declining. And I think that's probably because there's no sports. And I think sports is a big draw of why you turn on the TV. Without sports, I think you just don't even turn on the TV now, and you tend to move towards streaming. So I think my gut is that at least during the pandemic, you actually see a slowdown in cord cutting because people are using their TVs more in general. The streaming services obviously benefit dramatically. And I think as you come out of this, I wouldn't be surprised if cord cutting reaccelerated, just as people are looking to save money. You know, I don't think anybody wants a satellite installer or a cable installer coming to disconnect their service right now. But I think on the other side of this, I think the shift towards streaming only accelerates you once you've gotten in the habit of binging.
Rich.
Yep.
Right. What do you make, though, of the advertising piece of this? Because you look at companies like CBS Viacom, for example. I mean, the market cap on CBS Viacom today, I believe, is somewhere in the range of $8 billion, which is almost unimaginable.
You know, advertising is going to be really tough. You know, my guess is when you think about the TV side of the equation, you know, we went through over the last 12 months, we were using data from iSpot TV. They showed us, and out of the top 60 advertisers, 12 of them are car companies. That's going to be tough coming into if we're in a meaningful recession, that's going to get pared back. You know, 11 of the top 60 are quick serve restaurants. That probably bounces back pretty quickly as low cost ways of people getting food. But, you know, the car part of this equation, we went back to 2008, 2009, and the data that we saw showed that car advertising spend was down 20, 25%. Now, look, there's categories that are going to increase spending dramatically. I mean, you think about the events calendar. Once you can go to movie theaters, there are concerts again, and again, I don't have any idea when that's going to be, but there looks like right now the stacking of events, you know, from Kentucky Derby to French Open to, you know, you think about just what's going to happen once we start opening up again. The advertising spend tied to that is going to be very helpful to these media companies, but it's going to be a tough next 12 months. I wouldn't be surprised if dividends got cut across the board.
Hey, Rich, what's your prognosis on AT&T? I know we were just talking about the streaming service HBO Max coming up in the next month and a half now. But that's a company, as you know so very well, that does have a lot of debt on its balance sheet.
Yeah, I mean, look, Walt Piecyk, my partner, covers AT&T. I mean, I think if you look at the Warner Media side of the business, I mean, obviously the film side of the business is going to be beat up pretty badly. I don't know if right now they're scheduled to put out Wonder Woman now in August. But let's be honest, Andrew, do you think you're sending your kids or even yourself to a movie theater in August? Like it feels sort of hard to imagine that we're going to go into a packed movie theater come August. You know, I don't know when it's going to be, quote unquote, okay to go into a movie theater. But that's why I think what Universal is doing in trying Trolls in a few days, you know, trying to release a movie directly into the home and avoiding the movie theater. All the movie studios may need to take evasive action and rethink kind of how they reach consumers. But, you know, if you think about Warner Media more broadly, what I can't understand, everyone is trapped at home. You know, Julia just went through those statistics of how much people are streaming. You know, the Comcast put out some stats saying, you know, something similar in terms of overall streaming bandwidth for video. I can't understand why HBO Max is not just launching today. You know, how much would we be watching Friends right now if it was available to binge on HBO Max? And remember, it's a pretty easy upsell for consumers. You pay $15 for HBO, you're going to pay $15 for HBO Max. So who wouldn't want it? I just can't figure out what they're waiting for.
Rich, are you a believer, though, that this is going to be a step change in the film industry, which is, I mean, you're talking about Trolls. That's something that's very controversial among theater owners who are very worried that this is the moment, that this moment is going to be a watershed, and basically that the media companies and the studios are just going to rip up the entire model. But the question is, you rip that model up, there were a lot of zeros that used to be at least attached to that model.
Look, you're asking an incredibly important question, Andrew. And the problem is it all really depends on what you assume for how we recover here. You know, if we're back to going to movie theaters in September and you can put movies out, great. That would be amazing. I'm sure we all would love that. But I guess I'm just concerned that, you know, if you think about blockbuster films, you know, meaning films that are supposed to do $1 to $2 billion, Mulan, Black Widow, Bond, you know, F9 got moved into the middle of next year. But let's take Minions, which did $1 billion. The next Minions was supposed to come out in June, and it got pushed by Universal. When you think about those billion-dollar films, they require, you know, 100+ million people to go watch them in theaters, average ticket price around $10. If you can't get, you know, if we're talking about social distancing in theaters where it's every other row and every third seat, you can't do $1 billion in box office. And so the question becomes, you know, if you don't want to go and stand in line at a movie theater in September or October at a packed Friday night for Mulan, maybe Disney needs to rethink how they put out movies. Maybe Universal does. Maybe everybody does. And, you know, maybe something like Disney Plus, instead of costing $6.99 right now and movies come 8-9 months later after they're released in theaters, maybe it needs to cost $15 to $20 and the movies come out day and date. And I know that's unimaginable, but if it's going to take a lot longer than everyone thinks to feel comfortable in a packed movie theater, the movie industry is going to have to make some very hard decisions over the course of the next 12 months, probably over the next 6 months.